Welcome, everyone, to the Mechs on Deck talk show. Today, we have something special for you. We have the man of interest himself, Mr. Huey, is joining us as Chewy breaks his switch tester.
Just a little bit.
Welcome, Huey. We're excited to have you here today to talk a little bit about kind of the hype in the hobby.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I've been watching your guys' show since you guys started, so really happy to finally be on. You guys have a pretty good show going on, so yeah, there's a lot of hype in the hobby to talk about. I think it's a force for good and a force for bad.
Lots of contrast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of getting into it, we'll kind of roll into something that you learn in all the way back in middle school: supply and demand.
Ooh. All right. Well, I'll kick it off. So, for those who don't know what supply and demand is, real quick econ lesson. If there's too many things and not enough people buying, prices are going to go down. If there's more people buying than there are things, prices are going to go. Very simple. And in this community, there's just been we're constantly growing. We're constantly adding more and more people. And the way we do group buys, that you kind of have to be there when it starts, and there's only going to be so many, and there's only going to be so many extras that are sold. And so we are starting to see, especially with keycaps, we're starting to see a growth of, well, these prices are starting to rise because there's not that many sets out, and it's starting to, the more and more every time, every time one person kind of starts going, I'm going to be in, I want to start buying some stuff for a new mechanical keyboard, that becomes just a little bit more wanted, and that price can start growing. Well,
Yeah, there's definitely that. I think one of the big things in this hobby in terms of supply and demand is, especially when you look at older sets, there's a finite amount that there's never a guarantee any set will have an additional run, whereas this hobby is exponentially growing almost really really quickly, and as more people join, so eventually a lot of people will find out about older sets. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I'd like to get my hands on that someday. And the demand's going to keep going up for all these new people joining, but that set that ran 3 years ago, I don't know if it's going to have another run. Probably not going to have another run. There's only 150 to 250 of those out in the wild among 7 billion people. So prices tend to go pretty high for a lot of older sets.
Yeah, I think we're in a point too where it's like, I think now more so than ever, and I think that's also just the nature of the hobby, is we've kind of exploded over the last like 6 months or so, especially with the different things that have come out. So even sets that are not even that old are exploding because we've doubled in size in the past 6 months. I don't know if that's actually a figure, but for instance that that explosion makes it to where there's more demand than there is supply, especially on what Huey said, like those older sets that people see on those posts on RMK, and they like, ooh, I need that, and then they end up looking at it and it's $600 for a keycap set. So
yeah, and it can be tough too, because I've one of our mods, Moon, he joined 6-7 months ago, and even sets that haven't even physically been out for 6 months, like I guess Olivia just probably turned about in age from actual production, that ran back in April, and that's a set that we've seen in price, and there wasn't that many, and there wasn't a whole lot of I mean, I know in like the Top Collect community, and just kind of like it was definitely people were very excited for that set, but I feel like now it's kind of grown into its own thing, and now Olivia sought after GMK sets at the moment, and so when you see something like that where that's it. Unless there's a round 2, there's only going to be a finite sets out there, and unfortunately, not everybody's going to be able to get it, and people with deeper pockets are going to be able to.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you think the structure of group buys and the way that everything works from that standpoint affects the hype and the supply and demand?
Yeah, interesting question to ask, because in terms of supply and demand and shortages, when you think about it in the grand picture, because anyone has the opportunity to join a group buy, most supply and demand issues are both artificial and temporal, because the only reason there's a supply and demand issue with like GMK Olivia, the last that you mentioned, was because people chose not to join during the group buy, which is their own fault for people who didn't join. It's an amazing set. How can you not already tell it was an amazing set? But yeah, that's like one of the big, like, almost hypocrisies in this community with supply and demand, because when it ran, everyone who was already in the hobby had a chance to buy that set at what is basically potentially the lowest price that set could ever go for.
Yeah.
Right? Because after it runs, if there are any extras the vendor picks up, they'll be probably, $15 to $25 more than the group buy price, which is still usually ending up being equivalent to or slightly under the whatever market price ends up being. But of course, that does circle back to the first thing was, sure, everyone who is already in the hobby while it ran had the chance to get it. There's always going to be new people joining into the hobby who missed out on that chance to initially, join on the original group buy. And, their only solace is to try to pick one up on whatever external market after.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, you see these still have unopened sets too. So, there's going to be shine. The older it gets, the less valuable is going to be. There's going to be that kind of weird where people are going to stop looking at older sets. I'm sure people will still be happy with colorway, but when you have these people buy sets and then never open them, those just go up and up and up in value. And so that I think it can be a very good thing that people are still willing to sell these sets, because it does give the opportunity a few people that were not in the community at the time, but now be able to pick up on them. That does come at a so well. Unfortunately, it's a very it's very good for some people, not so good for other people, and it's a tough call to make on whether or not it's a positive.
It goes both ways. It just depends on how willing someone is to want something at the end of the day. Are your pockets deep enough if something costs too much for the average person? Or are you a person who's, joining in on multiple sets with the intention of looking down the long run and being what people would consider either a flipper or a scalper, or just someone who's doing that, which at the end of the day, we can't do about. But yeah, it's just one of those things in our community that I think scarcity will always be natural to a degree, because as long as more people are joining this hobby, we're creating scarcity for ourselves. But a lot of people do like that aspect of this hobby, believe it or not, like the exclusivity. That's why people will like clamor about like private group buys or things like that, because it always does kind of feel cool to be in this exclusive group. Like, yeah, I was one of the original 150 people to join in on GMK Olivia. Got it at group buy price. Cool.
Yeah, and I think
cough T1 switches.
Rip.
Rest in peace.
Big rip.
I think that's kind of like, the increase in price and stuff like that is kind of the nature of the beast in any hobby where you have a finite number of items and then they sell for one price originally. It's going to be significantly more because there's only so many of them. And I think what we're starting to see, especially with keyboards, less keycaps right now, is the capped group buys Like, for instance, the Kepler there's only 50 units, sold out in like a day at an $850 board. That's kind of insane. And you can expect those boards to sell for probably 1,000 plus on the aftermarket once they do come out. So I think that what you'll see is, as the hobby grows, you'll even see some keycap manufacturers that might do caps of runs, that they have that as an option to do that, to make their keycap set have that kind of mystique, and give the people who purchased it that feeling that Huey is talking about of, I'm the only one that has this, or I'm one of 150 people who have this.
So I want to actually backtrack for a second, because I think a lot of your audience is a bit newer in the community, because you guys have a lot of content on really beginner friendly stuff. I want to do a big background on like why, for example, there's only like one run of GMK Olivia. Like, why doesn't GMK just keep pumping out those sets when like it's the most popular set right now, right? Like, doesn't it make the most economical sense? While that is true, there's a big relationship in our community between manufacturers and designers. What do I mean by designers? Well, GMK Olivia, named after Olivia herself, the designer. She's the one who put together those colors. And while there is no such thing as a trademark on a selection of colors or a copyright in our community, there is a deep respect and understanding between the wills and wishes of designers and manufacturers. So GMK won't just, without Olivia's permission, run GMK Olivia.
Mm-hmm.
When another set has another run, that's because the designer wills it to be. There will be, by the way, if you guys don't know, there will be another GMK Olivia run in the future. That's already been confirmed. But that's because Olivia's like, yeah, I'm going to have another GMK Olivia run in the future. That's something she chose. GMK could not choose that for her. And that's the same with a lot of these older sets as well. So if anyone who's wondering like why that hasn't been solved by just pumping out more keycaps, there you go.
Yeah, it's the wishes and wills of the designer and the people involved in the creation of the set.
Yes, and that's a big part in our hobby, because without that, there becomes almost no incentive for people who become designers and design their own colorways for the community. Otherwise, we'd be at the whim of every manufacturer for colorways. And if you ever looked at how colorways, that's why we don't trust manufacturers with colorways.
So true. And the thing is that designers, in a sense, they don't want the hype to stay around the set that they made 3 years ago. They want to continue moving forward, continue designing. And so if they're just pumping out Olivia, if they're pumping out 5,000 kits of Olivia, and she's not able to make a set like Olive because of this, and no one buys it because they're still hyped up on the rose gold set, then she's not going to ever get anywhere further in the design career,
Yeah, and it's a multifaceted web as well, because, for example, GMK only has so many machines to make keycaps with, and that's why an average run of 150 to 250 plus caps can take 2 to 4 months, depending on the run size. And GMK, for example, their production queue is already filled through till the end of this year. If you wanted to start a group buy now for a GMK set, probably wouldn't see it till like this fall or winter.
Yeah, because I think the average is like 16.
Yeah, well, sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I think the average is like 16 weeks and that's without color matching or any kind of that process involved. So I mean, even from now, 16 weeks is like what, September?
Yeah. So that's one of the big things. Like it's not like there's like a lot of competing manufacturers or GMK keycaps. There's one manufacturer, GMK, who has limited production capability for our hobby. And most designers are like, well, if we have limited production, let's keep doing different designs from different designers and keep moving forward instead of being stuck running the same thing forever. Because if that was the case, our community would have never moved past white on black and black on white. That's
I will say one company that is kind of helping. I mean, it's still technically a group buy, but Originative is doing a lot of things that are helping kind of push this. We're going to make this happen. We're going to try to avoid try and skip past the group buy structure and start making sets. Now, one thing you have there is a lot of sets thrive in interest checks because you can bring something up to the community and get a lot of feedback, and with that feedback, you can create a really awesome set. And you've seen, I think, Metropolis was benefited from its interest check, where some of the originative set runs have not had that much feedback, and they're just kind of releasing. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but you're not gonna. It could potentially not be successful.
So, I'm still gonna say that I'm gonna have to be your heel and say I think there's more negatives than positives with their with the way that they currently do their runs. I think it has potential to be one of the best ways to do runs, but here are the issues, right? Originative orders 2 MOQ for most all their sets, except for like if it's like a hyperfuse recolor, then they'll order up to like 500 instead of 150, 250. That doesn't solve, for example, that actually makes the issue of potential scarcity worse, because at least in group buys, it can go higher than that, right? Originative is already capping the sets as it is, which isn't always the best option. So they're contributing to that issue in one way. The other one is they don't get feedback from interest checks. You mentioned, some sets definitely can thrive and do better from interest checks, and they kind of don't do that at all. And that's why you get like that Sky Dolch set that they have with the like that burning red pink Ongul sub-legends that looks absolutely trash. Like if that was put to interest check, that would have been put up in flames. Everyone would have been like, come on, do that better, right? But they didn't listen to anyone.
From Geek Hack.
And it looks bad. Like that's the thing. And they probably still have it in stock. I'd be surprised if they sold out. That's actually why they have quite a few sets, a lot of things in stock, is because like they kind of do their own whim to a degree. And sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss. But even with that, like most all their stuff is still marketed as a group buy. For example, that's just kind of like what they're doing now. Like they had Star School and everything else where they list it as a group buy, but they don't tell you an MOQ because they're always going to buy up to MOQ. So in truth, it's just a pre-order system.
Yeah,
is the way they get around it. And like I said, it could work really well, but I don't think they should be a shining example of how to do it. I think they're an example of you can learn from them if you also want to do this model. But I do applaud them for at least embracing that model, because it's an expensive model, saying, hey, up front, I'm going to go between 150 to 250 sets, put that money down even before I get everyone's money to secure the production spots and hope it sells through its lifespan.
Because you are seeing faster turnaround some of those sets started. And
I know on the insider info, Originative already pays for production spots ahead of time, just like Mass Drop. So for example, they're like, oh, well, there's a production spot open for September through October. Originative was like, I'm gonna put a down payment and I'm gonna secure, I don't know what set I'm gonna produce during that time yet, but I have that slot. And then they figure out what set they're gonna put in as it gets closer. Mass Drop does the same thing. Mass Drop has their calendar filled all the way through the end of this year and half of next year, I believe, or at least the first quarter of next year.
Huey, it's drop.
Oh, sorry,
it's drop. Please,
drop.
Like let's not. I don't know what this mass drop thing you're talking about.
Yeah, sorry. Things change after they lost the masses.
Yeah.
But yeah. So a lot of big companies already secure production spots. So it's kind of like how it is.
I would pretty much agree with you on a lot of that stuff. I think the only benefit that I see with Originative that really helps out is having GMK sets readily available for people who are newer to purchase that don't necessarily understand that, oh, I'm going to buy this and have to wait 3 to 4 months to get it. You know, they go and buy like a tofu or something off of Mech Market, and then they're like, well, where can I get a nice GMK set? And then they see these online and they might find something that they like and they can buy it right away.
So I feel like it's a double-sided coin, because like if it's still in stock, doesn't that mean it's not that popular?
That too. Well,
right? Like,
yeah, but you look at something like SA Hyperfuse.
That means it didn't get purchased up to MOQ and they friended the rest. So like I said, to have the lifetime sales, doesn't that kind of intrinsically mean it's not as popular as sets that like have big group buy amounts?
It might not be as popular, but
it is available. Right, it is available.
Having something available, and then on top of, even if there's 50 people that stumble upon it and go, it's a really cool board, a black tofu with Tokyo Nights on it. That looks awesome. And then basically being able to buy that as a set, like, would be like, I think I was telling Eric this a few weeks ago. I was like, if the tofu and Tokyo Nights came out, I would be like, and I was like just starting out, it would be hard to kind of move past that, because such a solid like intro into the community, and it does help. There are people. The other good things. I'll dig my heels in the ground for Originative on this. The other good thing is it might not be for everybody, but there are definitely these sets that are being released by them that people are going, awesome. That's exactly what. And the fact that they're readily available and they've got quick turnaround times they're going to have Originative is going to have diehard fans going, this is great. They do exactly what I want. And
well, I will say they don't have quick turnaround times. They're the same turnaround times as everyone else. They just hide it. They just don't say it's.
They keep it. Yeah. They, what the community doesn't know won't hurt them. Sense. So.
Yeah, it's not like their keycaps somehow take less time to produce than everyone else's keycaps.
They're in the pockets of GMK. And yeah, I definitely don't. One thing I don't like is how their group buys just like appear, like out of nowhere. It'll be like one day,
they're pre-orders. They're pre-orders.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like, Originative's running 3 sets right now. Did anyone know? No, we didn't. So
not even you typed in originative.com like some sort of fool, and next thing you know, you have 3 GMK sets in your. But. Moving on, we've touched on kind of the price creep, as some say, the price kind of slowly increasing, and I feel like we've seen it a lot, especially in the last like 4 months, of some of these sets that the group buys ran in 2018. Sets such as Serica and Olivia and Taro's one that kind of sneakily became a really sought after set. I think Taro started right before I got into the community. And so you're seeing a lot of these sets that are becoming more sought after, and the price creep is very much real. So seeing sets go for 50% of what 50% increase, 100% increase of what they are, can be a bit of a downer in the, especially, this person only bought it for $60 and now they're trying to sell it for $300. I don't have $300, and it's already hard enough, especially, we try and gear towards newcomers. It's already hard enough convincing someone that, hey, keycaps alone are $150, and then they go, well, I want that colorway, and it's like, that's actually going to cost you $300. Could potentially have a few people running with their tails tucked. So
yeah, it's definitely a very collector mindset hobby. I mean, it's kind of no different if someone's like, I want to get into high-end sneakers. How those Air Force Ones that ran years and years ago, how much are those? Nani? So it's a big thing that does happen in most collecting hobbies as well. I mean, I don't think keyboards isn't immune from that, nor keyboards can be immune for that. I know I this was kind of brushed upon in a stream I did with Nathan Kim a little recently, about market prices, which kind of goes into, that price creep, right? Like how does a price creep upwards? How does it become established at market? Like why is GMK Taro generally regarded to be a $300 set now, right? Like that's just kind of the headspace of GMK Taro. Why? And to be honest, it's because one person decided to sell that much for that much, and they were able to get away with it. Other people followed suit. It's kind of good and bad to say that, market prices usually start by being set by flippers, right? The first person to sell JMK Taro at $300 was a flipper. Everyone else after him or her sold it at market price. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You they're setting the tone, basically.
And that's why, I don't really believe there's anything we can or should do about we just accept it as a natural part of economics. For example, there's some sets where that never worked out, like GMK Plum. For the first 3 months after GMK Plum shipped, the set sold for lower than the group buy price, which happens very rarely, but can happen for GMK sets. Can you imagine GMK sets selling for under group buy price? It hasn't happened since Plum, by the way.
I was about to say, I don't think it's happened since then.
It has not happened since then.
Someone sold like GMK Olivia for $130.
Dude, they get like 20 million. Actually, that person would also get PMs where like, hey, I'll buy it right now, even though I'm not first, for 300.
Yeah. It would become a bidding process.
It would be an eBay situation. But no, I think a little bit too is what you talked about earlier of how, in a sense, it's kind of us as a community, the people who didn't get into those keycap sets. It's those people's fault too, because they see the keycap set come out and they see pictures of it on boards and they're like, oh, I didn't think that set was going to look very good. And so now they're like, I'm willing to pay $250, $300 for this set now, because they now value that higher than what they did when it was at group by price, when they're kind of essentially flying in somewhat blind in terms of going from renders to actual keycaps.
And that's definitely something that you mentioned with newer people. It's definitely something that I think affects newer people more often than people who are experienced in this hobby. Because when I see most renders, if I know who the renderer is, which I usually do, Zamumon, Oblotsky, are the two I would probably say I trust the most. There's a few other renderers as well that I know really well. I'm pretty good at already having a good idea of how a set will look on a board in real life based on renders than, people who are newer in the hobby. And for those people, it's kind of harder for them to imagine right away if like they should get that set based on that information. So it's definitely something that, definitely can favor, like, why do so many of these, veterans get so many more sets or are willing to take the chance on so many more sets that, oh, these sets somehow now are amazing looking sets that we didn't really expect them to be. And now they're selling for, more than just, a few hotcakes. They're selling for a lot of hotcakes. And somehow the people who all own them are like all these veteran people, right? It's just like, it's just there's a disconnect for a lot of people on, the difference between renders and reality, like you mentioned. And I think as people in the hobby become more dive deeper, they learn basically a better way to imagine a key set on renders onto a real board, as well as it cultivates their own, FOMO, fear of missing out mentality. They're like, oh, I missed out on GMK Olivia, not letting that happen to me again. Like, get this next set by Olivia and get Olive. No, Olive's gonna probably get, sell like the best hotcakes in the world, because people at this point are like, well, Olivia had one smash hit, let's watch her do it again.
Yeah, I think renders have come a long way, especially recently. Like, it's been like the renders, some of them I'm like, that looks like an actual key set. Like, that looks like an actual board with an actual set of keycaps on it. It doesn't even look like it's a true render. And then I think also the people who are veterans in the community also understand the history of the runners, like Zamumon. Like, they have a little bit more trust in there, where someone who's new going in and looking at a set like maybe Striker or something and is like, I'm not sure how that's going to turn out. I don't know if I want to put, even though it's a low cost set at $100, I don't know if I want to put in that money.
So I think that last point nowadays is a bit more negated with the trust in the designer for a lot of people, because I think with the advent, the great increase of vendor designer relationships,
Yeah.
people can now just regard the vendor, like when Demomon runs something on like Novel Keys or drop, they don't really think of it like a lot of the average people who aren't really into like following the designers just see it as, oh, Novel Keys is running a set, and Drop is running a set. They're like, well, I trust Drop, I trust Novel Keys. It's more, I think it's transitioning to that for the average Joe, as opposed to people who really get the deepest dives in the community, where it's like, oh, the Zamumon sets. I know Zamumon. I talk to him every now and then. He's a cool guy, I guess.
Well, we've talked a lot about key sets. Let's talk a little bit about boards and how kind of the different tiers of boards can increase different pricing levels in terms of aftermarket.
I think two things here are the big brand recognitions, hands down. If TGR makes a board, people are going to want it. It could be a very goofy looking board, but if it functions, right now TGR could release almost anything. As long as it looks functional, I think it's going to be great. The Alice is like the perfect example. The Alice is not a standard design. It is abnormal. Everyone had it, and I've typed on. I didn't think I would like it. When I first looked at it, I was like, that looks like a nightmare to type on. And I tried one at a meetup, and I was pleasantly surprised. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's why these people are, obsessing over this board. And that's something that I was not willing to take a risk on, because that's a 500. What was the group buy price initially?
I believe it was like low fives, and
Low five, yeah.
after shipping and PayPal fees, it was like six.
So yeah, that's a $600 risk. I'm not really
$600 before switches and keycap.
So, for those who don't know, that is the Alice. It is a ergonomic style keyboard, and so now that's kind of one of the I would say one of the big boards that everybody's losing their mind over, trying to get on the mech market, and people are flipping for a lot of money, just tons of money, and these, we're seeing prices double. I've seen they have the TGR Jane, which is a more standard layout that is for crazy money, and just so these boards, you're seeing it's exclusivity because they don't run that many. It's a good thing for people who are able to get in on. Quality control is going to be, but that we're starting to see that where people are going to start going, I could probably take a more risk if they design something that's a little more out there, that's TGR. I think you could probably go, I'm going to take this risk, this $600 risk, because it's got that TGR branding on it. Therefore, I know I'm going to be able to.
Yeah. So real quick about the TGR. For people who are new or may not know, like who may have heard of TGR boards, not know the hype. So the most recent board, the TGR Jane V2 CE, which is the second Jane V2 run, all 100 units for a $550 keyboard, sold out in 2 seconds. Reference. All of the units for the original Jane V2 sold out in 42 seconds. All of the units for the Alice sold out in 47 seconds. And these are, multiple $100 boards that sell out in under a minute. So in terms of branding, that recognition, that reputation, it does really go a long way in this hobby for a lot of designers and people who work with manufactured boards. All these boards I have, both these chain boards, these TGR boards I have a third TGR board, the 910 polycarb, all absolutely A plus S tier board that I own. And you're right. At this point, TGR Yutsuki is the designer and the man behind TGR brand. Could release basically anything, and it's gonna sell harder than any hotcakes you've ever tried before, because it's what's part of what's in, and almost to a degree, it's like people following the fashion industry when a certain designer is gonna put something out, everyone's already lining up before they even know what it is, right? Fortunately, we do know what it is every time beforehand through the wonderful intercheck and group buy system.
That brings up an actually interesting point. Do you think, this is kind of side note, but do you think TGR could go, I'm working on a secret project, it's $500, I'm releasing a group buy
instantly, yeah.
And I think they
LZ
wouldn't
did
even think, because LZ, I remember they said, I remember that little buy. But so that's, those are kind of the S tier. We've talked about that a little. We do plan on actually. Huey's done that with the cool board, with kind of seeing how these certain boards kind of rank out. But we'll talk about something a little less, not having to spend a comma just to get your hands on a board. And I think one of the perfect examples for kind of a flip board is the Rama. The Rama M60 specifically is a board that there was no capped limit. He took orders. He manufactured every single one that had an order. He made extras. And that's still a board that came out in late November, early December, that is still flipping for, if not, it is still at least getting money back. And I've still seen a lot of them that are at least making a very small profit. Not, and when I say profit, I mean in the sense of you technically made more than $1, more than 1 penny more than you spent on it. And that's one of these boards that I think is truly affected by hype. Now, we've talked about this before. Rama is the king of advertising.
Real quick, when you say truly affected by hype, are you saying you don't believe the M60As are that good?
I think it's a fine board, but I think, and this is personally, price-wise, I will take, quote me on this, whatever. I personally think that I like the TX60. I've sat down with my TX60 and a Rama, and I messed with them both, and I like the TX60 just flat out. And it's cheaper by about $100. But Rama, once again, he's so good at advertising. He's so good at creating that experience that we talk about. And most people like their Rama boards. And if they don't, they sell them, and people want this. Oh, it's the Rama. It looks cool. They have they are kind of flashy, and they have cool designs. And, Rama's a great guy, and he's brilliant for what he's doing. But this is a board that, the first 3 weeks that thing came out, people were selling M60As for $700, $750. And that's leveled out now, but that's something that we see where a board gets a lot of hype to begin with, something that is not even tangible yet, that's never been released, and you see that price increase.
So I think with the round boards is a bit of a different story, because at this point, everyone knows that there's going to be more rounds, and rounds of different colors. So at this point, people are like paying an excessive amount for a M60A because it's for a color that won't be run anymore. But at this point, I think a lot of people, there always will be a small profit on top. That's just because you're paying someone who's willing to wait for you.
Yep.
Right. That is a service. People do pay people, for example, to wait in line for them. That's a legitimate service, and it's kind of like no different for like keyboards, right? Sometimes, most sets, part of the price increase of most keyboards and most sets, part of that increase is like, I waited for you. This is the premium that you weren't able to wait, or you weren't able to get in on the buy. So therefore, I just, swooped into line and then that's like the fee for that. And sure, you can say that's scalping or that's whatever it is, because if you didn't want it, then why did you get in? Or maybe they did want it and they don't want it anymore. But that's kind of what it's a part of. And I think at least for the Rama M68, Rama does a really good job with like, hey, there's no limit. I'm gonna make as many as people want to order, just like with key set group buys. And if you missed out, that sucks. But hey, there's gonna be a future round. So if you're willing to wait, you can get in for a group buy. Or if you're not willing to wait, then hey, at least the market prices are relatively stable because people know there's going to be another round.
Yeah,
which is always, I think, I guess one of the best ways of approaching it. And I'm really happy he's able to keep up production quality with that high amount of production. That's actually extremely difficult. Actually, I have a lot of respect for Rama for that. I haven't really used the M60A that much, so I can't really say. I do have a TX60 like you. I absolutely love TX60. Love it so much. I have two TX60s.
I have two TX60s.
Hey.
I have one as well.
And we're a little biased, and we're out in Texas, and you see, oh, this awesome TX60. Clearly, it was all Texas, not made in Korea, but whatever. But it is. Eric and I have talked. We have very similar tastes. Maybe not color as much. And what we like out of a key. So like seeing that's kind of TX60 to me at least that's kind of the all right. Is it how much better can it be? How much worse is it? It's the in between spot, but and that's another board that kind of keeps its price. Now we've started to see a little bit. I've personally started to see a little bit of a decline, at least with the last run, not the anti. Right? And on the 60%, we've seen a little bit less, but maybe you could say there's something about marketing because there's not really much. A lot of times, TX group buys you have to really be looking for. He does not. I have to check his blog, his personal blog, that has to be translated just so I can kind of keep track of what he's doing. That just something to say. And some people we talked about the antique group buy. Actually, I remember talking to you, Huey, about this months ago when he first did it. And I was like, hey, where'd you get that board? And you were like, that's group buy like months ago, bro. Sorry. I was like, ah, crap. But I had, I remember fine, yeah.
I don't know if my camera will capture how nice the antique is, but
that's the same one I have. Antique brass TX60.
It's such a beautiful board, but that's one of those boards that not as many people know about. There might not be as much hype, but they're incredibly awesome boards, and because there's not this huge hype train about it, the people that have them, I've never met someone that's like, I hate my TX60. Like, this is just a garbage board. It's like most people are like, yep, this is an awesome product. But there's not this mystique about them it's not a flashy board.
So in that regard, I think actually Kin, for people who don't know, the man behind the TX60 boards, actually does the best job at walking the line between the Rama model and the TGR model, because Kin does produce a lot of boards, but even on all these group buys, they're actually still limited. They're limited in pretty high numbers, like to a degree. Like, for example, when I did this antique run, there's actually only like 3 copper antiques, for example. But like the rest of the TX60 runs, like my TX60 Champagne, it was like, yeah, there's like 100 units available. No big deal. And the thing is, he runs these quite frequently, like 3 to 5, decently sized buys a year for Kin boards.
He's just very silent about it.
He's very silent about it, but I think there's a big reason, which is he doesn't want to have to produce Rama numbers to still fulfill them. Right? That's an operation.
If you want a TX60, if you really, really want one, you'll start asking questions, and then you'll
get one.
You'll absolutely get one. There've already been 2 TX60 group buys this year.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's becoming something that you know you are starting to see this just this kind of growth with just him. He's becoming more and more popular with all these releases, but he is, like you said, writing that line where he's staying kind of under. He's almost like an underground keyboard manufacturer, which good thing, bad thing, kind of.
I think if you were to compare it to something that like the same kind of business model that a lot of people know, Rama would be something like Apple. They're a lot about design. They're a lot about marketing. They're a lot about the experience of opening it up. And then something like TX is like a custom PC manufacturer like Origin PC, where their stuff's still really high quality and there's a lot that goes into it, but they're not quite as customer facing and just regular average Joe facing as what like a Rama would be, or an Apple would be. They're not spending as much money on that marketing. He likes where he is at. He is super successful with where he's at, but it's just one of those things. Once you kind of get more ingrained in the community and you learn about TX and Ken and what he does, it's super easy to get into his buys. It's super easy to find stuff because he sells tons of stuff, not even just keyboards, like his springs, cases, films, and it's what he does for the community is fantastic.
I swear by those cases. Those cases.
Yeah,
Eric and I got in on his case group. Those things are amazing, and it's nice. I'm gonna rag on you, Huey. I would watch you put your boards on that like bookshelf wire thing on your desk. I'm like, oh my god, those are nice boards. And you're just throwing them on there. And so, but it's I used to keep mine in the boxes that they came in, but now, in case he just releases all these things. But I think Rama has done arguably one of the best jobs pushing the community and having access to these awesome, really awesome boards. I mean, let's be honest, like the M60A was a very successful group buy, and it's still an awesome board. I'm not saying I hate the M60A. If someone came up to me and was like, hey, would you want to buy this at group buy price, and I had the money, I'd have a hard time saying no. Mm-hmm. I'm not really the biggest fan of HHKB as much as I used to, and I'm still waiting on my M0110, so that'll.
All right, moving on. We're going to talk a little bit about boards that get a bunch of hype from prominent members in the community, hyping them up, or maybe, even tearing them down a little bit.
We're gonna start our totally not sponsored by
Golden Chick,
but our spicy takes. First and foremost, I'm gonna blame Huey for something.
Yeah, what's up?
I'm gonna throw shade. I was so pumped for the M0110. I was pumped and I was ready, and he was like, "This board is awesome, and let's do this." And I bought it, and it's not here.
It's totally Huey's fault too.
That's all you, Huey.
It's all me. I hyped it up. I had all the money collected from a vendor that's not me. I scurried to the factory. I started putting all these seeds of doubt, and now where is it now?
Not here
in the mind's eye.
I'm sure it'll be a great board, but that is a perfect example of there are people in the community such as Huey and Kim and the guys at Top Clack and other people that will go, I like that, and because they like that, it's the thing. It's the hot thing of the week. If someone goes on record and say, this is something that I used to watch in Top Clack, and they would go, this is an insta buy for me. And I remember specifically TA90, that GMK set. Now, I don't know exactly how many people bought TA90 because they said insta buy, but I'm sure there's at least a handful of people that said, I'm kind of on the fence, and they go, you know what? They like it, and I like them, therefore A plus B equals C. And so we are seeing a lot of hype around these boards and around I think it comes a little bit more with keyboards as opposed to keycap sets. But if someone likes something, if Nathan Kim decides that he likes something, his mob is going to hop on that train.
Yeah, that's something very true and very prevalent in our hobby. I think the best example, a lot of people may not know if they're newer viewers, but there's a great YouTube keyboard reviewer, Cairo-san. He reviews just vintage keyboards, basically. Absolutely amazing voice, like
Mm-hmm.
the most creamy, amazing ever in a reviewer. Watch his videos if you haven't.
We'll
But
put a link. We'll put a link below
yeah, I'll
for him.
put a link. Just honestly, everyone who's watching like should at least watch some of his content because it's really amazing and very in depth. Because he goes over vintage stuff and their history, which for like me, you love history. It's great. But back on topic, anytime he reviews a vintage board and he's like, "I like this board" or "I like that switch," the eBay prices are gonna double the next day. And it's a kind of it can be a really unfortunate thing because Blue Alps is, a very popular clicky Alp switch, and literally after he put out a Blue Alps video last year, their prices tripled for the Switch. Same thing with Brown Alps. When he covered Beam Springs, they're already on the up, but he just proved that they should be even higher. He has that effect for vintage boards where he's like, I like this, or this is good, or I would recommend this. Then all the eBay sellers see that, all the people who are in the vintage keyboard collecting community see that, and the prices skyrocket. That's probably like the most visible example of like how much it can be inflated. But even with like modern keyboard stuff, what I do, what you guys do to hopefully very soon a big degree, and Top Clock and Nathan Kim, yeah, we can definitely have an effect. And I'll be honest and say if we didn't have an effect, we wouldn't have sponsors. That's kind of like no, that's the name of the game, right? I mean, it's really cynical for me to say even like about myself, but like if no one cared about what I said, I wouldn't be sponsored. That's like
And
that's
well,
that,
if
that
no
is
one
the
cared what
actual
you
reality.
said, you wouldn't be doing it because you'd be releasing videos and streaming to about 5 people. Talk to them. So
I mean,
there's
I do stream to pretty close to 5 people. So.
I'm one of them. I tune in.
Yeah.
But I'm a solid quarter of your fan base. No. But it is interesting to see. We've seen the term. I would say one of the current most followed member at the moment is Nathan Kim. There's the kind of joke right now, Nathan Kim spec. And if you use the same switches and the same board as his, it's suddenly top of the line. He says kind of this. So if he sees a group buy, he's someone that's already stated, hey, I don't do a lot of group buys. I don't join. So if he joins in on something, it says, hey, I'm going to join. There's going to be more.
So he does actually join in some group buys. He doesn't say which ones usually. It's because
probably for the best.
For the better. No, he does understand his effect. Like he definitely understands it. But fortunately for him nowadays, he gets a lot of things, to review, or he doesn't need to buy a lot of things because he basically can try any board because most people send him really nice boards to build. So if he wants it after he builds it for someone else and sends it off, then he can just buy one, right? But he's in a very fortunate position in that regard. I actually did ask him in an interview on my channel, like, what do you think about Kim spec? Which was interesting because he's basically he's like it's kind of a joke, but like he likes the idea of it, but he hates the fact that people may use it to try to justify a higher price when reselling something. If it's NK spec, especially if he hadn't touched that board. Like someone just said it's NK spec because it's built with the same specs he did. He's like, that's not what Nathan Kim spec is. Even though it's not really a thing. It's like it should only be applied to if I built that board. Because, as a professional keyboard builder, which I'm going to call him that now, he's also a professional streamer.
He gets to be paid to right? He gets paid to build
he gets paid the big bucks to build boards, and that's what makes his boards that he builds special. His craftsmanship as a keyboard builder. At the end of the day, we know it's just soldering and looping switches, which is kind of small things, but how people do those come with their own touches. And that's kind of the big thing about, you know, him being, I hate the word, but it's true, an influencer
Hmm.
in our community. That's why he has the most sponsors. That's why, you know, he's living that Twitch partner life, working on, I think, Instagram partner life, and
Discord partner life.
Discord. He's working on Discord partner life, if not already. So
Yeah, and I mean there is something to say. A very good friend of mine, Anthony 001, Anthony, like he's another very relatively popular board builder, and he's built me a board before, and it's done fantastic. So I do believe that there has something to say of, hey, you know, I'm this random guy on the internet that built this board, and you're like, I don't know anything about this guy. I don't know if it's good, but you throw in the fact that, hey, this guy that everybody likes built this board, and he's clearly done something good. Everyone's kind of like, all right, well, you know, I now want to buy it because I know, you know, it's like, you know, you buy from certain brands because you know you're getting a quality product. You buy this because it's confirmed it's.
Yeah, I think those opinions that are valued in the community by people, like people value obviously Huey's opinion, Nathan's opinion, the guys on top class opinions. I think that's very important for the growth of the community and the stability of the community, because it does help maybe group buys hit MOQ, or a buy that maybe was lesser known. If they send out a prototype and it gets reviewed and it gets amazing reviews, all of a sudden that buy goes from something that not a lot of people knew about to now that guy has a history of being a designer now. Now he can go in and make more boards and have kind of building up his own legacy in the community.
and I think for a lot of designers, it can be a big learning experience, because
Right.
on the flip side, spicy time. I think
Get 'em
we all
out.
recently saw a very popular keyboard that sold a lot. Two notable streamers in our community got samples to build, and in both streams, this keyboard did not work.
Yeah, so this
So
past weekend, two very well known, like everyone knows, Nathan Kim can build a keyboard. And people know that. That's a common knowledge. Everyone knows that Quakeums from Topclack can build a keyboard. Both of these people were unable to finish and complete this board to get it working. And it had not much to do with, you know, they didn't mess up soldering in the PCB. They didn't mess up, you know, they didn't break anything. They didn't break anything. They handled everything greatly, but the board was basically doomed to fail. They were sent samples that were not 100% what they should have been, and did not pan out. Nothing against those two builders. You know, as I said, we don't need to doubt their ability to be able to do this, but this kind of reverse effect of like, cool, we're going to show off these nice boards, and then if you give them something that's not really a completed product, or not something that, you know, it can have the adverse effect.
yeah, I think that's definitely unfortunate that that happened. Like, I'm sure it's going to be a great board for hopefully it turns out to be a great board
Hopefully.
who got it. But
Really hope it's going to be a
I'm
good
really
board.
hoping there's like two major things. Like, right, one, hopefully the group buy runners like really learn from like why those went wrong, so they can avoid it for everyone else. Because a lot of other people buying it may not be as experienced builders as Nathan Kim and Wakeums, who are very experienced builders. I respect their buildability and opinions very highly in that regard. And at the same time, you know, if you're, you know, a designer or a vendor or someone who's like, I want to send someone a sample to check out my product, double check it before you send it out. Is also a big lesson. So, yeah, there's like a double effect. I mean, it's not like in this regard, it's not like the effect will change. I don't think anyone's going to cancel their order because of what happened on those streams. It doesn't change the fact that, you know, that board sold out in a day, all the units. So
Yeah, it's interesting to see. You know, there are definitely boards that I think I'm curious to know. You know, I'm sure there are boards that people go, I don't really like that. Might see a small. You know, they might not get as many orders for a board. That with stuff that's more higher end, especially you slap on gasket mounts and stuff like. You're just releasing a standard board. A lot of these people might not get them if Huey decides, hey, I see this board, I see what they're doing. It's not for me. I'm not going to do it. It's decrease the numbers, but the exact opposite can happen. So you should get the Polaris, by the way. Speaking of, I love the Polaris.
I don't know if that one's gonna have any issues with being popular. It's
probably not.
Can't imagine.
But moving on from the hype, I want to talk a little bit about something that actually kind of came from. We had an issue in the community, and there was a lot of talk a couple weeks ago because of a board that was very hyped up and is a very expensive board, was actually flipped after being won by someone. What do y'all feel about flipping?
Unfortunate, but what can you do about it?
It's there.
Yeah.
It stinks. I wish there was a way that you could, there's a lot of things you can try and do, but at the end of the day, you can't. You can go, hey, we want, if you're going to enter in this keyboard, we want you to sign something that says you might not flip. That doesn't matter. They could give it to their. Like it stinks, and you're not going to make a lot of friends if you do something like that. But
then those people may not care about that because they just made a lot of money.
Right.
Cool. Take my $1,500 and laugh.
So, yeah, I'll also discuss this quite a bit on Nathan's stream and on my own stream. My real opinion about it is like I personally don't like it, but at this point, I don't think there's anything worth doing about it or anything you can do about it. It's just a fact of life kind of thing, for better or worse, because there is a good side to flippers technically, which is, like I mentioned really earlier. Technically, the first person to have flipped a set or board kind of already started to dictate that market price. Like GMK Taro we talked about earlier, the reason the market price is around $300 is because one person started that trend by flipping it for $300. Now everyone else following in those footsteps are just selling it at the market rate, right? That person was basically willing to like take a chance and see if someone would be paying that much. Now people are, and they're willing to, and that's what market rate is. Do you consider everyone selling it for $300 a flipper? Some people do, and some people say they're just selling it at the market rate, and that's where what flipping is and isn't is a big gray area, and therefore I think whether you frown on it or you think whatever, it is ultimately just how things work.
Yeah, it's just kind of there.
But back to the original point of like flipping a giveaway, like nothing you can do about it. But damn, that's scummy.
That's bold.
Oof. Onyx.
Yeah,
Where's there?
I would love to get
There you go.
But we're gonna start. We'll wrap it up there. I think believe we've said what to say. We said some spicy stuff. I got to yell at Huey, so I'm happy. But so as y'all know, keyboard of the week this is airing on Tuesday, and want to do keyboard of the week, and we don't know what it is. Eric and I, we're giving the keyboard of the week. As you know, man of interest, Huey has multiple boards, and let him decide. Giving him the power.
Unlimited
power. But Huey, show it off.
Keyboard of the week. I already posted on y'all's Discord on the appropriate channel. Those of you who have not seen, is my beautiful HHKB with Just Systems High Pro keycaps, as well as a normal 104 High Pro set. The reason is if you ever wanted to High Pro an HHKB properly, you need 2 keyboards to do so. In the JIS version, the Japanese version, so you have the short shift. But if you get that, you need the American version because otherwise you don't have a normal enter and a normal space bar. This HHKB also has BKE Redux light domes. It is lubed with Tech Keys Thin Mix, which I will be relubing soon. As a Hasu Bluetooth controller, 3D printed port covers because I don't have ports anymore. Absolutely love this board. I have a silver sticker covering the logo. It is probably one of, even though it's also one of the most valuable boards I own in terms of monetary value, it's one of my most beloved boards because I've had this HHKB and I've been modding it since 2014.
Wow.
Yeah, there's the dates on the back of this board, which is 2014-06, which you can't see in my blurry camera. Love it.
It's beautiful. Yeah, it's definitely a beautiful board. We definitely appreciate you coming on, Mr. Man of Interests.
Thank you so much for having me. You guys have a great show going on.
Tell us how we can find you.
Well, people who are watching can find me on YouTube, youtube.com/manofinterests or twitch.tv/manofinterests. I put out a weekly video, usually every Monday or Tuesday, which is a news roundup for Intertext group buys and other news in the community. I also do reviews and other silly keyboard stuff. And I stream usually on Mondays and Wednesdays as well. I also have a show you guys mentioned earlier, the Cool Board. Season 2 of the Cool Board starts on the 22nd of this month, which is not this coming Wednesday, but next Wednesday. So hope to see you guys tune in for that. It's a live show where I, as they say, put rankings on different keyboards and possibly hype or unhype things and affect their market price. Yeah, so tune in for that if you're interested. Feel free to check out my YouTube channel and all the awesome stuff I have there. And don't forget, if you're not already subscribed to Mechs on Deck, subscribe there as well, guys.
Thank you. We appreciate it. We will be doing our first stream actually tomorrow over on Mechs on Deck Twitch. As we've mentioned in the past couple episodes, we are going to be doing more of our free talk series. We'll be moving over to Twitch. It'll be 8 p.m. Central on Wednesdays.
Yeah, I was going to say, he actually said tomorrow, but well, yeah, tomorrow, yeah. We're not recording this on Tuesday, but you know what? That's just
it goes up on
right over my head. But yes, tomorrow. Today is what Tuesday, totally. Yeah. This is what afternoon light looks like in the mornings.
Yeah.
My apologies. I'll just shut up.
You got that Sonic waiting. Your mind's thinking about that chili cheese coney, But no, we definitely appreciate you coming by again, Huey. Thank you so much for joining us today. Like you said, don't forget to like and subscribe to both us as well as Man of Interests, and we'll see y'all soon.
Bye, Switch Tester.